Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video view series. We take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the character creation supplement, How Do I Know You?, designed by Justyn, Johnston, Carcas, and Ben Milligan for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my content, consider using my affiliate links for online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson. So, one of the more challenging things in when starting a D&D campaign is figuring out how your player characters know each other, because odds are you are an incredibly diverse group of people. You're all kinds of different races and cultural backgrounds and classes, and some of you might not normally have anything to do with each other. And to the detriment of a lot of campaigns, the DM and the players, kind of on both sides, don't do enough to create those connections from the very beginning. Instead, it's like, well, you all showed up at the same job board for some reason, just looking for money. And then what happens is you have to awkwardly all break the ice together through the first couple sessions and kind of learn about each other, or maybe you go through a full session as you introduce each other. And it can be a problem. Not like a huge problem for the whole campaign, but it makes it a slow start and kind of awkward to begin with as everybody kind of figures each other out and does that. And you know, as somebody who was once a new DM, I never did that either. I just kind of threw everybody in there and said, okay, here's how we're starting, and you guys are on the road, you took this job, and there we go. And then, you know, eventually the players can, you know, the players come to with each other, and the player characters obviously start bonding, and all that will happen organically. But you can create those connective tissues earlier on by creating those connections, those relationships, and essentially building those connections via the backstories. And this is something that I've done a better job as I have DM'd more and more games and created those connections. So for an example, whenever we did our Tomb of Annihilation campaign, I had one of our player characters was a hired bodyguard of another character. So instantly they already knew each other going into the campaign, and that created that connection right there. In our most recent campaign, which is Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, at least at the time of this review, and that campaign introduces the concept of player secrets, so I really built on that, and it's slightly spoilery, but technically it has been revealed now in the campaign as of session like 14 or something, where one of the characters, their player secret was to spy on another player character for an NPC in that campaign. So it created all kinds of connections. And of course, they met during the opening events of what was essentially, I guess, session 1 at that point. That was part of their backstories. They had already met and were traveling together, but one of them had an ulterior motive for that. So that's a way that you can create those connections. And in fact, in the beginning of our session 1, I had characters already meeting each other in basically a cutscene, and they'd known, and some people had been traveling for a while, and others had just met. So it really creates a fun party dynamic where some of them already know each other, and then they already hit the ground running. So I would hugely advise doing that. And the whole reason I'm going on a rant about this is because that's what this supplement helps create, is those connections between player characters at character creation. So at the very beginning, when you're trying to figure out who your character is and you're literally building that character, this also adds essentially an additional step to character creation, which is, how do I know you? How does this character know the rest of the party? In this case, it specifically ties two characters together, and it creates its own little mini game for doing that, as well as including D12 tables for every single class in the game, as well as a general one that you can. Presumably you could just pick and choose if you wanted to. As if you wanted to run things as written here, you would actually roll dice. So the way the mini game works is everybody just rolls a d20. If you have ties, you just keep rolling until you don't have any more ties. And then starting with the highest roll, that person, and everybody's got their own little like token or chit or whatever. And starting at the highest roll, they then roll a d12. They get to pick the table first, and then they roll a d12 to determine which of these connections they're going to use. And then they pick one other character, and they take that character's token, which means that character can only be attached to another character in their story, but when it's your turn, you can then attach to a different character. So everybody becomes intertwined with one another, and whoever goes first, their token has to be chosen last, was the only other rule. Which is a cool concept for a minigame if you want to design your party in a little bit more of a randomly generated seed idea, which is something that D&D supports a lot of through the use of rolling tables, right? Like if you want to, for a lot of character creation content, and I believe Xanathar's and later books added this, where it was like different, aspects of your character class you could roll for like flavor stuff, and it was, D6 tables or something. So this is potentially a big part of your character's entire story, is the actual, connections they have. But if you are lost on that, or maybe you're not as interested in that, then this is a good way of being able to develop that just based on rolling the dice and then having those connections already in place. So it's a really cool idea that I'm very appreciative of, and it really fills an important gap. But I'm not a fan of the execution. Unfortunately, the actual results I found were kind of lame and boring. For the most part, I read through every single one of these ideas, and I maybe came away, and there's 15 tables of a D12 of each one, which, thanks to my excellent math skills, came out to about 180 different choices, which is a ton. That's awesome. But it's very much quantity over quality, because only about 10% of them did I think, okay, yeah, this is a cool idea. The rest of them are just really lame. And I can give you some examples. Let's do the good one first. Let's get some examples of ones that I think are good ideas. So there's one example that you are the so in general number 10, you are the illegitimate son daughter of the family of another character. So you are a bastard stepchild, basically, of that family. That's cool. That's great. You create that relation, and then you've got instantly the sirens are coming for me. Great. Oh no, they're coming for that bastard child. You create that connection, and that can be a worthy one because you have animosity towards that character, or the family could come into play in some kind of NPC capacity. Those are some great ideas. Another good idea is under, I had to write these down, Bard number 8. You aspire to regale the future deeds of some great person, and you have chosen character X to be that person. So that is kind of reminds me of like the Witcher dynamic, where you've got the other character, I can't remember his name right now, who just kind of follows Geralt around and sings his praises and stuff, and is like his personal like marketing PR department. I think that's really funny in a great way, and for especially to flavor a bard is specifically pick one character that you want to say is like all great and stuff. It could be very annoying, but hopefully you've chosen a character that can work with that, because you do get to pick that character, and then both those characters would then flesh out that story together. So that's a cool idea. Let's go to cleric number 5. You reveal a prophecy connected to your deity appears to have a connection somehow with the future actions associated with this character. So, and a similar one is the number 7. When you look at character X, you see an aura related to your deity surrounding them. So basically, as a cleric, your god is like ordained this particular character to be important in some way. Again, basically similar to the bard one, except in this case, you're just inspired to run to focus on this one character. In this case, you focus on this character because your god sent you to that. And of course, there's similar ones like in the warlock table, for example, where like your patron is dictated to this one particular person, just really important. That's great. I appreciate those. I think that's a fun connection. And it's up to the players and the DM to then flesh that story out and decide, okay, what is the importance there? Why is this person so important? We're going to skip to Paladin number 6. You recently used your Lay on Hands feature to save the life of someone known to character X. That's awesome. You're indebted to that person now, or you just really appreciate them. But that's a cool connection. You helped save the life of somebody important. I think that's a good connection. Rogue number 8. You haven't seen character X in many years. When younger, you and character X were friends until the day they found out about your roguish behaviors and you parted ways. Childhood friends is an awesome connection. Fantastic. I used that for an NPC connection, which it does say in the text here, where you could use this for NPCs and PCs, which I totally would recommend. I did that for that Tomb of Annihilation campaign. One of my characters was playing a dwarf, and so I had them be childhood friends with another one of the major dwarf NPCs, Hugh Hackenstone, and that created an instant connection and wanted that player character to then take on that other character's side quests and fulfill all that content. So that's an awesome idea. We've got Sorcerer number 11. You and character X discover you both once sought the same magic item, which can be a very easy connection, whatever that item can be. And you can obviously be different classes and things. It can be very important. It can be part of, you both just want it for yourselves, or maybe one person wants it for their religious order or their patron or whatever class they are. You can still work with that, but I think that's a good connection there. Warlock number 1 is very similar. Your patron believes, as the cleric one, where your god essentially is telling you this person is very important. And then I wrote down wizard 10 and 11. You and character X both remember meeting each other in a dream, or when you're around that character, your spellbook glows ever so faintly. Again, that person is important in some way, and your class abilities are triggering off of making that person important. Those are the good ones, and unfortunately, those are pretty much the ones I wrote down as the good ones. And keep in mind, there's almost 200 here. So I'm not highlighting those because those are my favorite. I'm highlighting those because those were, in my opinion, the few that were actually interesting and meaningful. Because a lot of these are not. A lot of these are more like just random coincidences that you happen to share and aren't in any way interesting storytelling hooks, in my opinion. Yes, a fantastic DM and great player group could take the smallest little story seed ideas and extrapolate that and turn it into a really amazing thing, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that just gives me those cool ideas right out of the gate. So for ones that maybe aren't so interesting, and I wrote down ones that were also kind of lame. Character X, this is for Artificer. Character X casually mentioned a place where they once lived. That comment reminded you of a contact you have that lives there who helps you with an idea you've been toying with for some time now. That is a very complex, like, somebody reminds you of a place and you have somebody who lives there that can help you with a thing. That is a very nebulous connection that is just not very interesting at all. But again, maybe an amazing DM and player set could come up with some crazy cool backstory that's involved in that. Sure. Barbarian 11, your tribe trades their furs and pelts with the trader at the outpost character X passed through some time in their recent distant past. So I drove through some area. Oh yeah, that area. I've been there. I sell my sheep there. Okay. it's just not very interesting at all. Bard 12, you once saw a painting that was the spitting image of character X. Yeah, okay, you want to turn this into a Ghostbusters 2 scenario or something? Or a picture of Dorian Gray? Fine. But otherwise, it's a really lame, stupid connection. Cleric 1, the first place of worship associated with your chosen deity is rumored to reside in the village town close to where character X once lived. It's just, some of these are like, you when you first meet somebody, and they're like, where are you from? And you say, I'm from Tucson. And they say, oh, I'm from Albuquerque. Or, I know Bill. Bill's from Albuquerque. Do you know Bill? I'm like, no, I don't fucking know Bill. Like, it's stupid small talk stuff. It's just these weird little coincidences. Or it's like somebody's, hey, my birthday's on April 19th. Oh, my birthday's April 20th. 420 plays it. Like, shove. Like, these are just stupid. These aren't interesting to me. These are just little coincidental, like, small talk things that just don't equal a cool storytelling device in an RPG, in my humble opinion. Let's look at some others. Druid number 9. A number of years ago, you and character X both encountered a tree that both. Oh no, that's actually a cooler idea. You both encountered a tree that both had your names mysteriously carved in it. That's actually kind of cool. Other one is like you both like the same animal. Or in Bard, like you both love the same song, which I guess that's a cute connection. And these aren't necessarily maybe they're not meant to be meaningful connections, but I was hoping to get more meaningful connections. If I was looking for a product like this, I would have hoped to have much more interesting things that would actually play out to be more possible story seeds, or in other words, make those characters have meaningful connections and not just you both like the same fucking song. To me, that's a cute aside, but I don't need to roll on a table to figure that out. One I literally wrote down that made me laugh out loud was Ranger number 9. The material for your weapon, I'm going to say this very carefully, the material for your weapon was originally sourced from the region close to where character X grew up in. The material for, and keep in mind, we're level 1. Who the fuck cares about your weapon? Occasionally people come up with these elaborate weapon backstories, but it's a trap because you eventually want to get a magic weapon, right? Material for your weapon was originally sourced. So the material, not the weapon, was found somewhere. The material for the weapon was sourced from a region close, not the region in, the region where character X grew up in, not where they even care about. Maybe they just grew up in. These are such stupid connections. Like, I'm from, I'm from Tucson. Oh yeah, well, I bought a car once in Albuquerque. Or no, I bought a car and the stereo was from Albuquerque. Like, I don't care. Like, this doesn't matter. This is not an interesting connection whatsoever. That one I literally stared at it and just started busting out laughing. And I don't mean to be cruel or mean about it, but it just, that is so not what I'm looking for. And it did do good ones. Like there were, the initial ones that I read through were cool ideas that were directly connected to characters, but some of these were just ridiculous. Like, let's look at the rogue. Says you stole from, I'm trying to find that one. Like you stole from a relative of a character or something, and it's like, why don't you just have it be that you stole from the player character themselves? Like I want more direct connections between characters and not connections to their homes or their mentors or anything like that. I want connections to the characters themselves, or make it more interesting and dynamic. Let's look at an example. I'm going to calm myself back down. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's look at the movie, right? The 2014, I think it's 2014, Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, does initial character relationships wonderfully, and it is a great example and should be used. If I was running a DM workshop, I would have a slideshow of the Guardians of the Galaxy come up, and I would have a whole class on this. Rocket and Groot know each other from the beginning. They are best friends. They are best friends for life. Boom, that's one connection, right? Two characters, they know each other, they're already best friends, they already can cut with each other, they know all their things. That's a great connection to begin with. They have they're bounty hunters, and they have a contract. They've taken up a contract that another player character has been, that has a bounty on him. So that's how they know that connection. They basically try to capture that character, which is Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, and then we've got Gamora, who is after an item that Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, has in his possession. So it's that magic item thing that she's just trying to get, except one of them, you're not both seeking it, one of them already has the item in place. And that character is trying to take that item and for her boss or mentor. And then you've got Drax, who her mentor killed his whole family. That is a direct very specific backstory motivator, and so he obviously would feel much animosity towards that character. So you create a very interesting rivalry. But then, of course, you've got the interesting dynamic where Gamora isn't, she basically wants to leave that mentor and realizes he's Thanos. So automatically you've got this crew, and they all have interconnections. They don't all necessarily connect all to each other, which is again not what this does, but instead it creates at least one connection between each character to where they're all kind of intertwined in really fun, interesting ways. So I thought that was just a really great example, and more of the kind of connections that I was looking for, more that were more serious and more dramatic and had more payoff and really could be part of the whole, basically into your own backstory, which if you're rolling a table for what your connections are, then go ahead and just have that be part of your backstory as well, and have that be a big part of your character. Or don't roll and just give me good ideas that you can create those connections between. I think, the Guardians are good examples. You could say like one character is indebted to another or works directly for another character. Two characters share a friendly rivalry or competition. To use Guardians, we use the second Guardians movie, like the Nebula and Gamora relationship. That's always a really fun dynamic. The players have to be very comfortable with each other to be able to do that, of course. You could have two characters just related to one another, which again is one of the ones that do here in terms of there's a step, a bastard stepchild. Those are the good ones. The ones that are not good are like you part of your weapon was built in a region close to where this character grew up in. Like that is just not interesting at all. Again, a fantastic DM. Okay, sure. The players, you could take anything. You could take anything and make it good. I get that. I totally get that. But I would still prefer more meaningful, interesting connections that would actually make the role-playing interesting from the beginning, as well as giving the DM additional toys and tools to play with to, have those cool, this going to be this character or these two characters. We're going to focus on these ones for this session because this is going to involve their backstory or their connections or whatever. So that's really what I was looking for. And that's how you do a 20-minute review for a 20-minute product. Go off on a rant. All right, pros and cons. For How Do I Know You? Pros: 15 D12 tables for generating intra-party relationship ideas tailored for all 13 classes. Plus, there's a general table and one for familiars and animal companions. Although I think it's very weird that your familiar or animal companion would be have a connection to another character. That's the whole point of having the companion, is that they have a connection to me. Maybe that, I don't know, that felt bizarre for me. But I appreciate the idea here, even though I did not like a lot of the results. I really do like the idea, which is generating those intra-party connections between players. And I think it's also a really cool idea to tailor them for classes. Because most people are obviously going to have their class chosen, and then you're going to roll these relationship ideas. And a lot of them do, have that flavor. Like it's if you're a god, if you're a cleric, or you're a patron, if you're a warlock, or your sorcerer, it's the first time you've invested wild magic or something. Like they do a pretty good job of tailoring all the classes stuff, even though the end result is still just not terribly interesting to me. And there's a lot of overlap between everybody's been through this poor person's town. Pro turns the relationship generator into a mini game during character creation. I think that part works well. It's not very complicated. You all just roll a d20, and you all have little tokens, but it makes sure that everybody is connected to one other person, so nobody is involved in like everybody's story. It feels more balanced. It feels pretty fair. So I think that actual system works pretty well. And of course, the con is that most of these ideas are just vague, uninteresting, and ultimately just coincidental rather than meaningful. Final verdict, How Do I Know You fills a helpful hole in creating initial connections between party members, but the number of truly interesting hooks and relationships is shockingly low. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Wizard, Princess, Christopher, Thomas, Captain Mike, Adam, Aiden, Stan, Nathan, Alex, Chad, Alexander, Dan, Daniel, Cameron, the Quizat, Hatterack, and gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Olympus Buds, Jerome, Scalenia, Nick, Farty Mick, Butterpants, Blood Angel, Verone, Baboon, Nathan, Fassica, Tortoise, and James. Thank you all very much for your support.